Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are discussing the Imperial Regent Roboute Guilliman's confrontation with the Silent King. A spoiler warning to begin here, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel The Silent King by author Guy Hayley. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Now, Roboute Guilliman's first encounter with the Silent King is something that's been anticipated since Sarek's monumental return to the galaxy. And with the end of the Dawn of Fire series, it is something that has finally transpired. And we discussed on Monday how the path to this encounter began, with the stunning revelation by the Adeptus Mechanicus that they had been lying about the Necron threat for years, hiding the scale and power of the Xenos from the Imperium so they could continue in their selfish quest for Blackstone. If you missed the last video, I definitely recommend giving that a listen first before continuing on with this, as it's an unbelievable admission really, the scale of Mars's deception, actively lying and hiding how powerful and widespread the Necrons are. And they only came to Guilliman because they were losing, pushed into a corner where they had no other choice, where they had to come to the Primarch and Imperium and confess their sins, blaming the previous Fabricator General. And Guilliman was of course angry, immensely so, but what choice did he have other than to act? To head immediately to the biggest current threat of the Necrons, the Pariah Nexus. Which is exactly what he did. Assessing the full truth of the Mechanicus' information, it was clear to Guilliman there was some form of authority or central power conducting the Necron actions. And so, he turned to Belisarius to concoct a scheme to sabotage the Necrons' stealing of the warp, which the Magos did. A fairly straightforward scheme in the end, to destroy the Necron network as much as possible, with Guilliman and his fleet translating into one system of the Nephilim region, bombarding a world to draw the Necrons' attention. All the while another fleet would do the same elsewhere, whilst Belisarius infiltrated one of the Necron tomb worlds to destroy the network as much as possible from within. And away they went, with the Necrons initially not responding until Guilliman's fleet destroyed the pylon on their particular world. And then immediately, the Necron ships began to arrive, all dwarfed by one particular immense vessel that blocked out the stars. And immediately the crew of Guilliman's flagship, the Dawn of Fire, began to lose control of their display systems, racing to isolate them as the Necrons opened communication. A huge image manifested in the hololithic pit. It looked down on the Primarch with burning green eyes. Upon its head was a crown of blades. It hung there a moment, glowering. Then the image shrank in on itself, showing the same being standing upon a Blackstone dais. Two lesser lords stood either side. They were big, but only half the size of their master. One of these now spoke. "Hear now this call to parley, lesser beings, and be glad of my liege's mercy. I am Hepatra the Radiant, Triarch of the Necrons, and servant of Sarek, the Silent King." Hepatra gestured to the greater Necron between him and his companion. "Sarek is mighty. Sarek is eternal. Sarek is the breaker of gods and reshaper of worlds. Hear his name and tremble. for his coming presages your doom. Heed him, and you shall be permitted to live as rightful slaves of the Necrons. Heed him not, and all shall perish." Guilliman stepped forward on his gravstage. "I am Roboute Guilliman, 13th Primarch. I shall hear you." "Then you are wise, Roboute Guilliman. Do you speak for your species?" "I am Regent of the Imperium of Mankind. I speak for my people, we who rule this galaxy." Herpatra laughed. His face did not move, could not, and the sound was all the more grotesque for it. "We know of your Imperium. You are primitives who squat upon our worlds and plunder our resources. Your realm is nothing. Compared to the majesty of the Necron Star Empire, you are weak and growing weaker. Your technology is primitive. We see signs of your kind everywhere, yet the worlds you occupy are few in this era. You are a race who has fallen and refuse to acknowledge it. Let it be known that at your peak, you would still have been nothing to us. Be grateful the Silent King is wise and just, or we would have destroyed you immediately without this offer of mercy." Now that is quite a claim. Even at the Imperium's height of power, it would be no rival to the Necron Empire. Of course, we've got no way of knowing if this is true or not, and considering the infamous Necron arrogance, you would assume it was simply their own ego and not factual. However, honestly, I think this could well be truthful here. In terms of technological might, we know the Necrons absolutely annihilates the Imperium, a chasm of distance between them. And this is an empire that defeated the Old Ones, shattered the Catan, literal gods, who had an empire that covered the stars, easily rivaling the Imperium in size. So it might be a little exaggerated perhaps, but I don't think the claim is necessarily wrong. I think if the whole of the Necron race had awoken already, the Imperium would most likely have already lost. However, so it is Guilliman first encountered the Silent King, not on a battlefield, not in a throne room, but in a parley from one ruler to another, as perhaps it should be. However, if Sarek and his people thought for one moment that Guilliman and the Imperium would realistically surrender, well, they couldn't be more wrong. Then I assume you have not come here to surrender. Do not mock us, human. State then your terms. Hear this. Sarek, Lord of all the Necron race, demands the following. You trespass in the sovereign territories of the Nichalak dynasty, who owe fealty to us. Depart this place immediately. No further attempt to penetrate the contra-empirical nexus shall be made. Any ship or colony found within its bounds shall be destroyed. Return, and your vessels and your warriors shall be destroyed. What of the people who inhabited worlds in this sector? They are our property. They shall remain so in recompense for your actions. The remainder will be permitted to live. As allies then, of the great and powerful Necron people. We have no need of allies. As friends, said Guilliman, neither friends nor allies, but supplicants. Your populations and your materials shall be tithed. Go now, and we shall make arrangements to receive an embassy from you at a time to be determined, with which we shall negotiate the surrender and subjugation of the Imperium of Man to the Necron Star Empire. A sense of palpable outrage settled in the chamber. No person spoke. And this is something we cannot overlook here. That final line. A sense of palpable outrage settled in the chamber. No person spoke. The mere notion and mention of the Imperium of mankind surrendering, being subjugated by another, immediately fills the room with an absolute outrage. The kind of fury and emotional response you feel instantly firing in your stomach, the heat swelling within you. And for all the Imperium's many flaws, that is what makes the Imperium great, where so many other empires failed. And it is all due to the vision of one man who set out to unify his race. We have fought and beaten many species who sought to dominate us, said Guilliman. They were destroyed. In the past, our astromancers have reconstructed the quantum trails of your existence. Your history is known better to us than it is to you. You are a species far past its peak of power. You cannot even end your petty civil war after 10,000 years. You are prey to the non-entities of the warp, and you have never, ever faced the likes of us, the true masters of this galaxy. Witness. 100 small images sprang up around the Silent King. They showed war, only war. A small, fatal interaction between a terrified guardsman and a Necron warrior. A flight of skimming, centauroid Necrons blazing fire. Ships ablaze from stem to stern. Tall, gangling androids materializing aboard command decks. Tanks detonating. An entire fleet under heavy attack. And more. So many images, all of defeat and despair. This is the fleet you call Kalades, said Hepatra. See your defeats. They are beaten. But they live, said Guilliman. It is in our power to snuff them out, as we shall snuff you out. Guilliman smiled coldly. Yet you have not. They have penetrated this most important realm of yours, and they still fight. You bring evidence of your own limitations, and present it as mercy. We shall not surrender. Not now, nor ever. Humanity has one master, and one master alone. He is the Emperor, and he sits eternally upon his golden throne. Ugh, absolute chills here. We shall not surrender, not now, nor ever. Humanity has one master, and one master alone. He is the Emperor, and he sits eternally upon his golden throne. That gave me goosebumps the moment I read it, and it's given me goosebumps every single time after. I was hoping for some kind of line or moment like this going into it, and it did not disappoint. This is what it's all about. This is it. You might have the Silent King, but we have the Emperor. And you are nothing compared to him. It's like the moment from the Horus Heresy when Jagatai rips out the heart of the greater demon and yells for the Emperor. It's that iconic line of defiance that defines all of 40k. Because it all comes back to that one man sitting upon the golden throne, giving his eternal sacrifice. And so while he continues to fight for humanity, humanity will continue to fight for him. The Necrons aren't wrong. The Imperium is a shadow of what it once was, what it could have been. But the Emperor saw that possible time where it could still win, where that fight back would begin. And that time is now. And so while the Necrons might be right in the history, they cannot say for the future. And the Necrons greatly overlook the fact that they too are a shadow of their former selves right now, because they are still awakening, and until they all have, they cannot oppose the Imperium for might. 10,000 years is not an eternity. Your master is an aberrant mutant, and you are his construct. You snarl at the face of true power, animal. The Silent King asks again, so merciful is he. Will you surrender? Never. Do you hear? Guilliman said. He moved forward, and the armour of fate growled as if it shared his displeasure. Humanity is the master of the stars. Your time has passed. The three Necron lords looked down upon the Primarch. The giant king said nothing, did not move, but the single orbs of his courtier's eyes flashed. They both stiffened into immobility for a second. Very well, said Hepatra. Hear the word of the Silent King. Examples of your kind will be maintained in the royal menagerie, for posterity. The rest of you shall be exterminated. The hololith went out. Despite the efforts of the technicians and tech priests to return normal function, the device remained inactive. They make their move, and in doing so expose their leader, said Guilliman. Colquhoun narrowed his eyes. You cannot mean to engage. No, we are hopelessly outnumbered, said Guilliman. We shall begin a fighting withdrawal. We need to keep the Necrons occupied long enough that Khal may complete his task. But we shall not risk the fleet. Guilliman regarded a screen where an image of the enemy flagship was displayed. We know who their ruler is. We know how to find him. One day, we shall kill him, and the Necron threat will end. Today is not that day. Our objectives are achieved. They are distracted. Khal will succeed. Give the order to retreat. So the Silent King has revealed himself, and Guilliman now knows who he has to take out. The Achilles heel of the Necron Empire exposed. Remove the unifying Silent King, and the dynasties will fall to warring amongst themselves once again. By far and away the best way to deal with this rising threat, given it could well rival the Imperium in number. All Guilliman has to do is take out the Silent King. You could argue it's much the same for the Imperium, I guess. Taking out Guilliman the key to victory. And that may be. But we've seen the Imperium function without him for 10,000 years. And though they might not be as capable, though they are corrupt, the High Lords of Terror would do so again without him. And so, the Necrons are, in my opinion, in fact far more vulnerable than they realise. But I found it really interesting here that the Necrons know of the Emperor, know he is a Psyker, that they know the Primarchs were his creation. It's absolutely fascinating. And indeed, that second offering of a surrender may just reveal the truth of the fact that Sarek doesn't want to have to fight the entire Imperium, as he knows full well his empire in its current state can't win, that it would be a huge struggle and drain on his resources, when he's got bigger priorities to focus on right now. However, this was a battle Guilliman couldn't win. He ordered a slow fighting retreat, stalling for time for Belisarius to achieve his objective, which he did. But it all very nearly cost the Imperium its Imperial Regent, for Guilliman stalled his retreat for as long as he could, eventually losing his flagship, the Dawn of Fire, being forced to race through the corridors to reach his evacuation shuttle, and only being saved by Ilian Nataze, who led Guilliman to a secret webway portal to an approaching Eldari vessel. And it had one final encounter between Guilliman and the Silent King here too, as the Necrons reveal the ability to gain their own access to the webway, with an opening being formed from Sarek's bridge, and a final stare down between Sarek and Guilliman ensuing. And Sarek stated they'll end it here themselves, ruler against ruler, grabbing his spear. However, Nataze would shatter the gateway, closing it, just as the Necron forces began to cross. So it was an undoubtedly epic encounter and tease, with Sarek really appearing to not fear facing Guilliman in combat at all, even as the Primarch he knows he is. So that definitely gives us an idea of Sarek's prowess, far more than just a statesman ruler. Now, would he do the same against, say, Lionel Johnson? Or even the Emperor? Who knows? But he's definitely got the swagger to back up his title. And Guilliman would take all this as a loss in the aftermath, though Belisarius was successful in his objective. The Necrons are simply far more lethal and powerful than the Primarch ever imagined. Where is it going to go? Well, only time will tell. Unfortunately, we have to wait, as Guilliman's next path, as we know post-Dark Imperium, is going to take him across the rift. But as always everyone, what did you think? What did you think of this confrontation between Guilliman and the Silent King? Were you surprised that Sarek offered 2 opportunities for surrender, and that he knew of the Emperor and the Primarchs? And were you surprised on how easily the Necron fleet overwhelmed the Imperium? How close Guilliman came to death? And what do you think of Sarek being willing to fight Guilliman in personal combat? Do you think Sarek would easily have beaten the Primarch, or was he about to get a rude awakening? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.